Welcome back to Brilliant Fit, the podcast. My name's Jay, and I'm the creative producer. This is where we talk about all things Brilliant Fit and what it's like to work in today's modern day business climate. So whether you're working, managing, or leading, we tackle it from all perspectives. So sit back, get comfy, and let's see what today's episode has in store. Hey guys, welcome back yet again to another Brilliant Fit, the podcast episode. I'm back with my co-host Mel, and he is going to let you know today's topic.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Today's topic, I thought I'd share a little bit on some hard and yet very rewarding leadership choices.
Awesome. Awesome. I like that. It's a little bit of controversy in there. You know, I like a good
intrigue. Yes.
A bit of intrigue and a bit of controversy in a good conversation. So I'm intrigued to hear.
Yeah, so today I thought, the first one I'd like to share some insights around is all around actually the leadership choice of getting feedback.
Okay.
My greatest encouragement to leaders is always seek feedback.
Yeah.
And the other principle is feedback is always good.
Absolutely.
So it sometimes gets us into a head and people say, no, feedback's not always good. I go, no, in the broader picture, feedback is always good.
It's not always positive.
It's not always positive.
But it's always good to receive it.
Correct. Because at least you know what those people are thinking.
True.
Even if it's not great.
True.
So part of the my leadership journey around feedback is I'm a fairly early adopter.
Yes.
And so relatively early on, I'd been a leader, probably had run 2 or 3 teams by this stage. Yeah, the initial process of 360 feedback and thing had just been brought in.
For those who don't know, what's 360
360 feedback? Yeah, so 360 feedback from a leadership perspective is getting feedback from the people you lead, obviously, in your team, getting feedback from your peers, those you work with, and then getting feedback from your boss, who's one above you.
So it's essentially trying to cover all areas.
Exactly.
Yep.
Cover all aspects. So how are you leading downwards?
Yep.
How are you leading with your peers sideways? And how are you leading upwards?
Yep.
And seeking the alignment from your perceptions of how you think you're going in each of those areas to other people's perceptions, and obviously understanding the gap if there is one.
Right, okay.
And if there isn't a gap, it's just understanding, well, how well do we do those areas?
Right.
So there's 2 components around that feedback.
Yeah, okay.
How well are we actually naturally performing? And it could be in communication, for example. We might both think that I'm a 5 out of 10 on communication. I think I'm a 5. My team thinks I'm a 5. Right, so we're really aligned from that perspective.
Right.
But 5 out of 10 is not exactly a hitting it out of the park score.
Right. You're like, we're aligned.
So there's an area of development I could focus on. Yeah. So feedback is really important from that perspective.
Right.
My journey around feedback, though, was one of learning to accept it as a leader.
Okay.
And then learning to not only accept it, but actually, what am I going to do with this now?
Right.
Because one thing I always say to people, insight doesn't cut the grass.
Okay.
Right? It's like having a great lawnmower that sits in the shed.
Right.
Right? It's really good. You know it's going to be really good at cutting the grass.
Right.
But you're actually not doing anything with it.
Yeah, okay.
So insight's a little bit the same.
Okay.
People, you can get great insight, but what do you do with it? It's really important.
Yeah.
So I'm a relatively young manager. I've embarked on this 360 process. I'm quite excited about it because I think I'm actually performing quite well. Right? You can see where this is heading, can't you?
Straight away.
And because I think I'm a relatively high achiever, and I keep getting general kind of feedback at the end of each year that I'm doing very well. So I think my upward feedback and my 360 feedback is going to be the same.
Right. Yes.
And so I'm quite open to this and to do it. I got the feedback back, and the first thing that went through my mind was, it was quite comical in looking back on it. Well, these results are clearly not mine.
You picked up the wrong.
I've been sent the wrong results.
Person.
Exactly, I've been sent the wrong results. And so I quickly checked on the top and go, no, they are mine. But no, this is not what I was expecting.
Wow.
And there was some gap.
Humbling or horrifying?
It was horrifying, the first reaction.
Right.
Right? Because this is the first time I'd kind of formally invited 360 feedback.
Right. Did you feel like because you were essentially a great performer in your role, that you would naturally perform well in leadership?
So when you're considered, well, most organisations, your leader usually does your performance.
Yes.
Right? Assessment.
Yes.
He may talk to other people and may do those kind of things. But generally, he's the one who actually
Yes.
does the assessment at the end of the year. And rightly so, because he's the one who probably spends the most time with you in that leadership. And so from most of my leaders' perspectives, I was doing pretty well. Mm-hmm. Right? So hence I expected from everyone else the same. There was my error.
Right. Yes.
So I was obviously leading upwards reasonably well.
Okay.
Okay, from that perspective. But what I wasn't doing as near as well was leading with my peers and leading my team. And the team, I wasn't as concerned around the peer side. I was more concerned about my team.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so when I actually went through the feedback, it was around communication. It was around a bunch of other stuff. Do I communicate well? Right, the intention of the communication is the clarity there. There's a whole bunch of things like this. Strategically, they rank me pretty high. Those kind of things. Decision making, yes, or great from a perspective of making choices, doing those things. But there was a bunch of things around truly understanding empathy, right? Truly being able to lead my team in an encouraging way. I was falling well short of where my team thought I should be. And so this really troubled me. And it actually took me, I'll be honest, it took me 3 days to come around to process the information, to read it, to process. So how is my intention? Because my intention was lined up with their expectation.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So the gap was not in, my intention was not misaligned.
Yeah.
So my gap was in delivery. And so I had this great kind of conversation going on inside my head for a couple of days. And I eventually, on the third day, came to them and said, you know what? These people have been really courageous. And they've given me feedback. And I need to honour who they are.
Yeah.
And I need to honour the feedback. Whether I like it or not is totally different. Right? But I need to honour it.
Oh, good on you for that. I mean, that's a really good quality as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. It took me a while to get there, but a couple of days to get there. But I got to that point. And then when I got to that point, I went, okay, now I can process it well.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so what I wanted to do, and usually in this process, it's they often have a facilitator come in and debrief.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, no, we really, really need to do that. And I said, that's okay. But I said, I really do want to know where are some of these missed expectations. And so we did.
Having a facilitator can be such a healthy addition to the process as a mediator.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So if you ever do need a mediator, they can perform their role.
I mean, essentially, that's what you are a lot of the time now.
Well, correct. I am.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm doing that role.
Yeah.
And so part of that whole process of unpacking it was we had a brilliant conversation for a couple of hours with the team. And they literally said to me, we understand your intent and we think it's good, but your delivery sucks, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Good on them.
So I went, really? I said, is it that bad? And they go, yeah, sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Right? And I go, gee, I was sitting there going, you know what? My intention was here, right? But my delivery was clearly here.
Yeah.
And so they unpacked a series of examples of how that had occurred.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, I can see that. Not the way I see it, because I'm seeing it through my lens. But the way they've received it, they're very different to me.
Yeah.
And that was part of my journey around the whole concept of how do we actually develop a system and a technology that helps leaders understand their team. Because this is prior to when I actually had Bring It Fit.
Yeah.
Right? And so part of that process was truly understanding. I said, well, Craig thinks about it this way and someone else thinks about it that way. And Mary, she's got a very different view again. And these were all important people in my team. And so that began a journey, and I went, okay, thank you for the feedback. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I began this journey. Right, I've got to nail this feedback. Right? I'm naturally reasonably ambitious and driven.
Yeah.
I am going to make sure I lead well, right? That's my game plan. I'm going to become a good leader, way better than I thought I, was.
Right.
Well, than the results indicated.
It was your new challenge.
It was my new challenge, right? And I did, and I invested time in understanding and listening a lot more and communicating more effectively and 12 months go past, and now I'm pretty nervous about the results because I did it again. And marked improvement, probably 25% improvement.
Okay.
But I was, of course,
Still
being ambitious.
expecting more.
I was expecting 80 or 90% improvement, right? So I got right up to probably the 75 percentile, which is a pretty good
That's not bad.
result.
It's not bad.
But still not where I was projecting I was.
Right.
And I went, this is much harder than I thought it was going to be.
I'm so curious. How did the conversation go post that then?
Yeah, so the team again were really helpful, and they say, you've made great strides, right? As our leader, we can really see you putting in the effort, right? You're still not landing it, right? From time to time, but you're putting in the effort, and we know that.
Yeah.
And we know it's not easy. So thank you for putting in the effort, right? But our expectations are still here,
Right.
which is great.
Do you feel like throughout the process, so over that 12 months, do you feel like you were they were reading that you were trying? And so
Absolutely.
then they were responding, probably giving positive encouragement around that. And do you feel like you were reading that as though you were landing?
Well, we were having a lot richer conversations.
Yeah.
Right. So I knew it had improved a substantial amount because we were having much richer and better conversations.
Cool. So at least
it
you
was
could
just
see the
how
fruit
high.
from that.
Yeah.
Already.
So I interpreted from that.
Right.
And they go, yeah, it's improved a lot. Okay. Right. And that's great. And then I thought, right, this is actually much harder. I really, truly need to understand. Because I didn't realise at the time that whenever you're speaking, you're not really listening.
Yeah.
Because you're focusing on what you're trying to communicate. And so I spent a lot more time over the thing really embedding as part of some of those leadership principles and character choices to learn to listen more and to really focus and to understand and to feedback and to do that. So I'd been embedding more and more of this.
Yeah.
And I came to the third year, and it had become a part of my leadership by that stage.
Cool.
And I came to the third year, and all of a sudden I got a shock because I realised 2 weeks before this survey was due again. I go, oh goodness me, I completely forgot the last few months.
Got nervous.
Right, to really keep focusing on things. And I thought, oh, don't tell me I've dipped again in some way. Right. But we were having great conversations.
Yeah.
Did the feedback again, and was way up where I expected it to be.
Yeah.
I finally realised I'd actually embedded a lot of
it needed to become part of who you were.
a way of life.
Yeah.
And a way of my leadership style.
As opposed to a goal that you were constantly focusing on.
Yeah. So it became part of who I was.
Very cool.
So it was a very cool aspect. And so sometimes going on that journey, I encourage leaders, go on the journey.
Yeah.
It's absolutely worth it. And feedback is good all the time.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not always positive, but it's good, right, as a principle. The other thing that I thought I'd share today was around the whole principle of courage in leadership.
Yeah.
And it's what I today see a lot of leaders lacking in courage.
Okay.
Lacking in, I don't know whether it's COVID's impacted it in a different way.
Yeah.
But I see leaders not being courageous, not stepping in, not wanting to have some of the hard conversations they need to have.
Right.
Whether they're particularly concerned or not sure what the thing is, but I'm not seeing as much courage as I'd love to. And courage is such an important part of leadership.
Do you mean in the space of taking like a bold step to bridge a connection or to fix a problem?
That as well.
Yeah.
Relational courage or courage in relationships to really go after and fix things. Courage in an organisation to lead well, to lead strongly, to go out there I think a lot of people are concerned constantly with social media about how they're going to be perceived.
True.
And so they pull back and they go to this vanilla kind of approach.
Right.
Which is very lacks courage.
Yes,
right?
okay.
And conviction.
Do you feel like because of social media, a lot of people would feel like the risks are higher when you are perceived poorly?
Well, I think in the business organisational world, that has just put an environment where people are more and more risk averse, right? Because publicly you're shot down.
Yeah, true.
But I think we've got to be courageous around the right choices.
Absolutely.
Because what we're facing in the dynamic of the environment we're in right now is there is a lot of change, and there's continually going to be change.
Yeah.
Right? There's global change, there's local change, there's political change.
Yeah.
There's change to our laws constantly happening. And we need to be influencing that rather than be takers.
Yeah.
And it takes courage to do that.
Absolutely.
So I think courage in this leadership, you need to be courageous. You need to go with the character and the principles that you believe in. And put those things forward and say, no, we're not going to accept that kind of wokeism approach to things.
Yeah.
Right? We're actually going to be courageous about where we're going, what we stand for, what we're doing, and how we're serving our community.
Yeah.
Right? And either the products or the services that we actually want to do. No, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is where we're going. Right? And be strong in character.
What do you think the result? So if if you're imagining seeing the result of more courage from leaders, I guess, what does that look like for you?
Well, to me, it's very attractive. Right? You don't always have to agree with the direction, but courage and conviction are attractive and are forceful components in leadership.
Right.
And someone has strong convictions and courage to go after what they believe in, and you'll find people will want to follow them.
True.
Right? Because they don't always have to be charismatic, but they need courage and they need conviction. And more, we need courage and conviction to do what's right.
Yeah.
Right? To make strong choices. And choices are not about us so much as about the people we're leading, the companies we're leading, the organisations.
Exactly, those
the
affected.
Influence, the conviction to stay the journey.
Yeah.
Right? Now, whether you're passionate about whatever you're passionate about, it's the courage and conviction to stay the journey in the hard times.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Because there's going to be plenty of them.
What do you think about the need for, or the importance of, a leader's openness to a healthy challenge?
Yeah. I think that's incredibly important.
Alongside the courage.
I think courage is really about laying the pathway, or speaking into the vision that you've got, encouraging people to go down it, but equally be open to challenge.
Yeah.
If you're courageous, you typically are.
Yeah.
Right? Not everyone is, but it's an important element to have that conviction, have the courage to go there, but be open to feedback. It's a continual process. It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
Right? It's such an important thing that both of them need to go together.
Have you worked with anyone that you can remember that you saw them work on their ability to be challenged?
As in grow in that capacity?
Yeah, and you saw that journey?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah?
Yeah, so there was a CEO I was working with at one point in time who was very driven.
Yep.
And part of that journey was really encouraging him and coaching, and I did a bit of coaching with him on learning to listen.
Okay.
And not just listen, but hear.
Yeah.
Right? A slight difference to me.
Absolutely.
Listening and hearing.
Being able to understand the problem.
And he got to the point of saying, I'm actually not really good at this, right? I'm not good at interpreting what I'm hearing. And I said to him, okay, so, and he recognised that, and to me that was courageous. He says, I'm not good at it.
It felt like
I need help.
Disconnect.
Yeah, there was a disconnect between, he was very good at being visionary and knowing what to do and putting plans in place.
Yeah, but connecting that to his
Connecting
people.
it to how it would land and how it would work, he wasn't great at.
Wow, okay.
And so part of that process was I said, okay, we need a champion who can speak into what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I said, whenever you develop plans and processes, why don't, as step 2, because it's very project related, so step 2 in your process, or step 3 or 4, whatever you choose to make it, before you do anything, roll anything out, is check how this is going to land with people.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Get the feedback. Be open to how you actually roll it out.
Right.
Right? And he went, fantastic, I can do that.
Yeah.
Right? He said, if someone else is strong, and we looked around the leadership team and went, that person over there, they're really good at that.
Okay.
And so we just joined them together, and he said, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, and they did, and they formed a great team.
Amazing.
Right? And she said to him at different times, he said, this is what I want to do, this is where we're going, da-da-da. And she'd go, that's actually not going to work well.
Yeah.
Right? Intent, great. Direction, fine. But we actually need to tailor it. Right? And he listened, said, fantastic, go for it.
Right.
And so the impact of, developing people's talents, but being courageous to be open to the feedback.
Yeah.
Is really important.
Do you feel like that would be your, like a big part of the advice on the journey of being open? Like if you're somebody who's in a position of leadership and needs to get better at taking on, a healthy challenge, do you feel like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's feedback to me is it's way less about you, and it's about how you are actually delivering stuff, right? So it's less about me personally and more about, okay, what's the most effective and best way to do it?
Right.
And the feedback is about, well, here's where you are effectively on the effectiveness scale, if you like, right, in relation to that. So it's a way of constantly getting that connection, that feedback, being able to listen more and being able to land effectively, because leaders want to land their communication.
Absolutely.
Right? You don't communicate as a leader just for the fun of it.
No. You're missing the point if you don't.
You want to be effective. You want to be, really good at leading. And so my encouragement to leaders is, right, be courageous and be really open to that feedback as part of the process.
Amazing. So I guess in summary, just going back over your stories, is especially your own personal experience when you were going through this 360 leadership. A big thing obviously was setting up the review and then hearing. Yeah,
so in fact, the courage and the feedback are actually go together.
I was going to say, it really does tie in.
It ties in really well together. So be courageous, ask for feedback regularly.
Right.
And the other principle would be, and tip for you, is do it regularly. The more regularly you get feedback, the more smaller the adjustments always are. If you leave it a long time and then do it, you're likely to be surprised.
Exactly.
Right?
If you think about it like on your journey is a physical path, and your review are your measurement markers, and the longer you go between them, the more risk you have of going further off your path at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's get feedback regularly, but be courageous in the process.
Exactly.
Right. Of understanding, listening, learning, understanding what's working, what's not working.
Right. And the closer the less time you leave between these reviews, probably the less time for you to get overconfident about a potential projection, and therefore, it may not sting as much.
Correct. Well, I really encourage leaders to get quarterly feedback.
Absolutely.
Right, so there are no surprises by the time they come to the end of the year.
It helps build a healthier relationship between you and your workers as well.
And there's some great software out there now that
Yeah.
allows you to do regular feedbacks, and sometimes it's monthly feedbacks.
Absolutely.
And there is some software I've come across more recently, which is it's just ad hoc. Right, so it allows you to just give feedback and both recognition and saying, hey, be concerned about X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So there's lots of good software out there to help in the process now, and it's less about this event,
Yes.
right, or this performance management or assessment event,
Yeah.
and more about how do we just continue to encourage growth and development.
Okay.
As part of that process. But step into it, be courageous in the way you do it, get feedback, get it regularly. Because we all think, when we're doing some of this stuff, we're normal. Right? But our talent ranges are so different.
Right. And our perspectives are often.
And our perspectives around this are so different.
Yeah.
And so getting other people's perspectives, right, really helps us.
Yeah.
In what we do and how we do it.
Especially as a leader.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Well, thank you once again for your time today.
Pleasure.
Top topic. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Sounds good, Jack. Thanks.